Hello everyone, welcome back to Study Room. So we'll be continuing our chapter 2 microorganisms, friends and foe. And today in this video we'll be talking about food preservation. In the last video we talked about food poisoning, which is caused by microorganism acting on our food and rotting it or exploiting it. And when we consume those spoiled food, we discover or we get some kind of diseases in us, and which can even lead to death of us. So it's important to eat hygienic and healthy food free of microorganisms. So how do we preserve food? Let's move ahead. So here is a very interesting brainstorming session for you. When mangoes are left uneaten for a few days, they get spoiled and rotten, or any other fruit gets spoiled or rotten. But mango pickle does not spoil for a long time. So think about it. Pause this video. Think about it. Please don't Google it. Just think about it. And so the answer is because pickle contains salt or oil, right? And salt and oil are the I would say biggest preservatives, but the most beneficial preservatives which we have been using since the ancient times for a very long time. So you just have to remember that salt and oil are the most old preservatives we have been using since from a very long time. But why food preservation is important? When bread left unused under moist condition, it is attacked by fungus. Like we saw in the very first slide that bread gets rotten by Rhizopus stolonifer, which is a fungi. So microorganisms spoil our food. Spoiled food tastes bad, smells bad, and it also changes its color. So it's important that we save our food and keep our food organisms free. So is spoiling of food a chemical reaction? Well, yes. Spoiling of food involves microorganisms, and microorganisms, I'll write it down. Microorganisms breaks down the food into smaller particles. Okay, and it is a so this is your first point, and it is a acidic. It happens in acidic environment. And what is a chemical reaction basically? So when product A plus B both different, so we call them reactants. Both reactions are different, but when they get mixed and react, they produces a product C. So mixing of two different reactants give a product C, and that C has a different properties as compared to A and B. So this is what chemical reaction is about, and it is irreversible in nature. So when microorganism breaks the bigger chunks into smaller, the smaller chunks cannot get exchanged into the bigger ones. No, because it's a chemical reaction and it is irreversible. Chemical methods. So I told you that salt and oils are the most common used preservatives. So are the most common chemicals generally used to check the growth of organisms. Therefore, they are called preservatives. When we add salt or acid preservatives to pickles, it is being prevented from getting attacked by microbes. So apart from salts and oil, there are sodium benzoate and sodium metabisulfate, which are also used as preservative, and they're used in jams, squashes, and even in to prevent spoilage. So I have written down the formula for sodium benzoate. It's C7H5NaO2. So C is carbon, H is hydrogen, Na is sodium, O is oxygen. This is a very higher level studies, so you don't have to remember. You just have to write the name sodium benzoate and sodium metabisulfate. Common salt has been used to preserve meat and fishes for ages. For example, meat fishes are covered with dry salt to check the growth of bacteria. So you can see in this picture. So this is meat which is being covered by common salt, and salt is a very very best example of preservatives. So even raw mangoes, tamarind are also used to preserve these substances with the help of common salt. Now preservation by sugar. So preservation by sugar. Jams, jellies and squashes are preserved by sugar. So you know the very basic example of food which we preserve. We preserve jam, we preserve pickle and other various examples. So we do it by sugar or oil and your oil and your common salt. And the formula for common salt is NaCl. I forgot to mention, so yeah, write it down. Na is sodium and Cl is chlorine. So this preservation by sugar also happens in the case of jams, jellies, squashes, and because sugar reduces the moisture content, and moisture is directly linked to the multiplication or reproduction of microorganisms. Reproduction of microorganisms or microbes. So it's important that we use sugar to reduce the moisture content. Now with oil and vinegar, we have talked about it earlier as well. So use of oil vinegar prevents spoilage of pickles because bacteria cannot live in such an environment. Vegetables, fruits, fish, meat have to be preserved by this method. So it's important we do preservation of food with the help of oil and vinegar. Now there are other examples, for example heat and cold treatment. So boiling kills many organisms. So hence it is the milk, when we get our milk we boil the milk to kill microorganisms, and for example we store our food in fridge at the very low temperature to prevent the growth of microbes. So both heat and cold treatments prevent the growth of microbes. But why does the milk that contains in the pocket not spoil? Because it is pasteurized milk. Before packing it into the packages, it is being boiled at 700 degrees Celsius. So you can imagine the boiling point of water is it's 100 degrees Celsius, and we are boiling it at 7 times larger, and even for 15 to 30 seconds. And then after constantly boiling it for 15 to 30 seconds, we randomly and abruptly put it into very chilled environment. So we give it a heat shock and then we give it a cold shock to prevent the growth of microbes. This was the technique which was discovered by Louis Pasteur. Louis Pasteur also discovered the technique of fermentation. I hope you remember. So both fermentation and pasteurization have been given by Louis Pasteur. Nowadays, we often store our fruits, dry fruits and vegetables in the airtight pack container, plastic container. But we should not store hot food in it, because when hot food interacts with the inner lining of the plastic or the packaged substance, then it will release microplastic into our food. And since microplastic gets into our body and causes several harmful human health implications, so it's important that we don't store any food in the plastic packages. But even if you're storing, please store that the food is very dry, or it's not very hot food. I hope you learned something new today. So the common food preservatives are oil, sugar, and sodium benzoate, sodium metabisulfate. So these are the common examples, including your common salt. And there are various treatments to preserve our food. So we'll be completing this chapter with nitrogen fixation in the coming video. So see you in the next video.